Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. It is Tuesday, January 9th. Joining me is Josh Mansfield. And Josh, it's the moment we've been waiting for. The sponsorship news bomb drops on us on Monday, January 8th. And, you know, a lot of speculation about this. And it turns out the rumors are true. Tiger Woods, Nike, it's over. It's over.
That was the news. That was the news everyone on this podcast was waiting for. I realized just how messed up my search algorithms and like my customized feed are on all my socials and news when like all I saw was the news about a disc golfer, and I had to scroll a ways before I ever saw the news about Tiger. And I mean, I'm pretty connected in the sports like media and like watching sports news, and it took me a while to find this one. So yeah, it's big news though. I think there is some interesting news and like what Tiger is going to do next. You know, he says there's another chapter coming. I think there's some really interesting discussion that could happen around Tiger, but I just want to point out one thing. Tiger Woods, this is an article in Reuters. You can find it anywhere, I'm sure, though. He signed his first 5-year deal in 1996. Charlie, how much do you think that 5-year deal was worth?
He was what? He was like 14 or something. He was like not. I don't know if he's quite that young, but he was super young.
I think he was 20.
Okay, then
yeah,
I
was
just
20.
am wrong. Okay, I'm just wrong. But 5 years.
Yep.
I'll say 25 million.
40 million.
Wow.
In 1996.
8 million a year in 96, which, you know, whatever that is today, it's
geez, yeah.
probably, you know, 14 million in 2023 dollars,
yeah.
2024 dollars.
We got a ways to go.
And like, you know, what a monster. Like Nike loves to have the iconic athletes as part of their brand forever, you know. It's in a way it's surprising that this happened, but Nike has also been sort of divesting from golf for a while. So
yeah.
I wonder whose decision it was, and was it because of money or was it because of something else? Because remember, Nike stuck it out with Tiger even when he was going through it with the, like, you know, affair and the drama, like they didn't drop him even though a lot of his other sponsors did.
Yeah.
And so I'm
then
sure that it's like, I just wonder honestly if Nike was like, we don't want to pay you what it is anymore because we're not as much into golf. I haven't really seen any reporting on exactly what's happening there, but
yeah,
you know, he's not playing much anymore. Is he connecting with today's golf fan in the same way? You know, it is surprising though, because I feel like you could sell Tiger Woods golf apparel for literally forever.
Yeah. I think so too. But should we talk about the other sponsorship news, Charlie?
Let's do it.
Okay.
It is confirmed. Eagle McMahon is leaving Discmania. And so all the rumors were true. The snapshot of the YouTube that went private that we saw on Reddit, it was real. Yeah. I'm not surprised. Like, as you pointed out, Josh, last week, it would have taken an immense effort in Photoshop to make that a fraudulent thing. Right. So Eagle is gone. And this has been rumored for months. And so we are now seeing in back-to-back off seasons, Discmania lose the players that brought it to prominence and made it the brand that it is. And it's really, it's pretty remarkable. And I'm not sure. Perhaps we will get more of the backstory about why Eagle decided to leave Discmania. You know, is it a similar story as to Simon, where it was like time for a change? Or was it really about money? And I think either could be true. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a whole new world for both Eagle and Discmania because, you know, Discmania now, Kyle Klein and Ella Hansen, their most prominent athletes, those are great players. But it does feel like they need to make a move or people are going to be writing their, you know, their death story even though it would be premature, even though it wouldn't be true, I do think they would suffer a slowdown in sales if they don't sign Gannon Burr. I mean, that's really what it's going to come down to, right?
Right. Yeah, it's really interesting as we watch how this is kind of unfolded, because you see, I mean, when you think about players now and who are well established with brands, were really like top faces at brands, it feels like there just are not very many, if any, left, right? Like Paul now synonymous with Discraft was Innova, right? Like, yeah, that's where he started, and nobody thought he would ever leave Innova. And Ricky going back to DD, and I mean, just there have been so many changes, and I, you know, we joked about the Tiger Woods intro. This is business at the end of the day, and it has to be profitable for both sides. And while it's very easy to create like emotional attachments and fandom that connects them as part of a team, it's less of a team than even on professional level, where you have like in like team-based sports where they sign contracts with teams. It very much is like who is going to be able to make each other money and the most money and create a business partnership and relationship that is going to be the most successful. And as it's I think I was naive to think that the COVID landscape was not going to change disc golf so drastically that the old reasons why people are part of companies would not drastically change. And I remember, I mean, we did a segment, and I said that there was less than 1% chance that Eagle was going to leave Discmania in the off season.
Hang on right there.
Go ahead. Yep.
Let's play it. Let's hear what Josh said about, what, 2 months ago?
3 months?
Not
yeah,
too long.
Something.
Here it is. What do you have for 0.1% chance of happening, Josh? Final category. 1 in 1,000.
1 in 1,000. My 1 in 1,000. Eagle leaves Discmania.
Oh. Come on. It's got to be higher than that.
No, I don't think so. And here's why.
All right, so Josh, respond to yourself.
This is kind of what I was doing. I've gotten some messages in the Discord, or not messages, but in the Ulti World Discord, they were talking about, you know, this is another forking Isaac situation, and they're absolutely right. I goofed this one, this terrible take, and I was naive to think that any contract that was established pre-COVID was not at risk of being completely and drastically shaken up, because disc golf was completely and drastically shaken up. And whatever the reasons, Eagle said in his departure video that when he signed with Discmania back when he was 16 years old, that Discmania was not the highest offer, but he took them because of a gut feeling and it felt right. And
he had connections.
Austin,
right. Montgomery, Colorado. Like, you can see why.
Right. It makes sense. And you know, this is pure speculation. He has not said where he's going. He's not said the terms of any contract. I don't know if it's money, but it really feels at this point that the decisions that are being made are very much business oriented. And
of course,
right? And they should be. But it's just very different than the narratives and the way that people spoke about sponsorships pre-COVID. And that's my biggest takeaway from this.
Well, and you know, you got to give credit, because Eagle has been an incredible ambassador for Discmania as a brand.
Yeah.
He has always hyped the products. He has, you know, dealt with situations where he couldn't get stable enough plastic. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when they rolled out a new putter and it like wasn't right for him, like he kind of dealt with that quietly. And he's, you know, they're selling a Cloudbreaker in January 2024, and he's going to go do a signing as like I'm going out the door. I mean, I'm sure he's going to get paid for all that, but like, sure. it is a little, he's been a great face of the brand. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it was difficult for him to walk away, given that, you know, he chose to stay with them for years. But here is the thing that is really underlying all of this. Discmania arguably had the best contracts in disc golf with Simon and Eagle because they had them on, relative to their level, cheap deals throughout, like, into COVID times and as the boom was happening.
Yeah.
Eagle has been underpaid for sure for years. And the question is, like, how much negotiation was there on, like, bumping up that money? But, like, Eagle's not making Macbeth money. Mm-hmm. And he probably deserves to make Macbeth money. Now, if you want to talk about the injury status and the surgery that he's coming off of and, like, the risk there, okay, I hear all that. But, you know, look at Ohtani getting a mega deal as he goes through Tommy John, and he's in his 30s. But, like, you know what? Great players are great players, and they are probably going to bounce back, and you have to take a chance. So some company's going to take a chance. We'll find out who soon enough. And I think that somebody in the comments on Eagle's post, let me look this up. I want to get this exactly right. All Things Elevated on Instagram said, I guess this is the trend. Let a company make you rich, then bounce. I love Eagle and Simon. It's just crazy to me. Come on now. Like, if this is cope from a Discmania fan or something, because the idea that these guys got rich because of Discmania and not because of their skill and the value that they brought to Discmania to sell the discs that made Discmania a popular brand, the correlation and causation is busted. Mm-hmm. Okay? Their great play and personalities and vlogs and everything that they did as marketers, as influencers for the brand, that's what made Discmania money, and that's what made them money. Mm-hmm. Where is Discmania without those guys?
Oh, jeez.
It's not even close to where it is today.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't want to hear this like, oh, lack of loyalty. Come on. You want to see loyalty? Discmania should have backed up the truck 3 years ago for these guys. Mm-hmm. And they wouldn't have left.
Yep.
But they didn't. And then they tried to play catch up. And so, look, I'm sure Discmania is going to be fine. And I'll tell you why, okay? No one is talking about this, but Josh, I saw this. If you read the article
is this
on the website from Discmania, the Farewell Eagle piece, okay? Yep. Blah, blah, blah. You know, everybody's giving love. I'm sure there is plenty of, you know, appreciation on both sides for the long partnership that they had. But at the bottom of this article, it says, with somber news, there's often a silver lining. We have a lot of new and exciting things on the horizon. Stay tuned to see what 2024 has in store. Tell me you're signing Gannon Burr without telling me you're signing Gannon Burr.
I think it feels right. The previous connections, the fact that they have tons of quote unquote cap space, right? Money available to pay a top player. It really does feel like all the stars are aligning to make Gannon Burr very successful.
What are they going to do, right? Yeah. Gannon's like, I have X deal from this other company. What are you going to do about it? Discmania is going to match it and exceed it because they have no choice. And I think it sets them up for the next leg of their growth. And, you know, will Gannon and Kyle Klein have this on-course success that Simon and Eagle have had? I think that's very possible. Will they be as good of ambassadors for the brand? That's less clear. Mm-hmm. I think Discmania, they caught lightning in a bottle with two very, very skilled players who also happen to be extremely good at being like influencer marketers.
And that is correct. I'm not going to dispute that even a little bit. The point I want to make though with Gannon, there's two things that are of note here. Both Gannon and Kyle are younger than Simon and Eagle, significantly so, in terms of disc golf age. The other thing, you know, you got the question marks of Eagle injury, but Kyle and Gannon have as many majors as Eagle and Simon do combined. They both won USDGC. Like,
you're right.
That they both have US based majors too. I mean, winning European Open and both at Dakota Peach State, those are great majors. But winning
Eagle stands alone though. When I was writing the article about this, I looked it up. He's won more Elite Series and majors since he signed with Discmania in that span from 2016 to now, I think.
Yep.
He's won more Elite Series and majors than any players in MPO besides Paul Ricky.
And he absolutely deserves credit. Now, it's also not fair to hold Gannon's longevity up against Eagle's, right? Given that Gannon's only been touring for a couple of years, the kid's still 18, maybe 19 now, and so but that's my point that I'm highlighting, right? Is that you have two massively talented disc golfers who are still very young, assuming Discmania signs Gannon, around which they can build their brand. And Gannon deserves credit. He is very savvy when it comes to social media and his presence there.
I agree.
And so, look, I think losing Eagle is going to be hard. And I think Discmania is going to have to go through a rebranding and creating a new identity in a new era of Discmania. If they do it behind Gannon, I think that they have a real superstar who has social media presence as well as the skills necessary to be a flagship player, though.
I mean, let's look at this, right? Eagles 25, turned 25 this year.
Yep.
In 2023. Simon turned 31 in 2023. Kyle Klein is 21 and Gannon is 18. And so if you're projecting, right, it's easy to think about what we've seen.
Right.
But if you're projecting ahead, assuming Eagle comes back fully healthy, he could still have 10 years of tremendous level of play.
Definitely.
Simon is going to start declining soon.
Yes.
It's just a fact. From like a raw physicality and like athleticism perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And Kyle and Gannon aren't even close to their athletic peaks yet. They're still ramping up. And so I think Discmania is going to be fine. Assuming they sign
Gannon. I
think feels very, very likely to me.
We'll come back to this conversation if Gannon lands somewhere else.
Okay. We talked a little bit about last week where we thought Eagle might land, but let's talk about the impact of where I think I have 3 destinations that I think are plausible for Eagle.
Okay.
And maybe we'll get surprised. You never know. Mm-hmm. The number one option has to be MVP / Streamline. I mean, the rumors have been clearly the strongest in this direction. Reuniting with Simon, wouldn't that be just wild? What's the impact if he ends up at MVP?
Before I answer that question, I really want, if he signs the MVP, I want his press release to say, for years, Discmania wouldn't make me a disc stable enough, so I'm going to the brand that only throws over stable plastic. Impact for MVP. I think you brought this up, but who owns the Crush Boys IP? Because that, Crush Boys 2.0. I don't know what that is, right? But the reuniting creates an opportunity for branding and selling discs that is the Venn diagram. And it's I wouldn't even say, like, the thing is that there are people who will buy Simon discs, there are people who buy Eagle discs. All those people will sign and buy Crush Boys discs, but there are a group of people who will buy Crush Boys discs but not buy the other twos individually. And it does expand and create an opportunity for more disc sales, I think, in that area. It gives them, again, a very strong social media, YouTube, and media presence, but also pairs it with, what could be the top player for the next 10 years, as you mentioned with Eagle. And it creates a second line of discs, right? That you have the Simon line and then you have the Eagle line, and get to develop the Eagle line of discs that are right next to it. And it's just a lot more plastic that you get to move. I'm curious to see. I think the downside, if you're MVP, is that if you're Eagle, you see Simon's deal and you say, I know the terms of my deal, right? Like copy and paste, please. If if you want me, I want, right. At least that's, if you're Eagle and you know exactly what Simon's getting, if you're coming over to MVP, that's how I open my negotiation is I pull out a copy of Simon's offer. I set it down. I say, here's my terms. This is what I want. And like, I'm curious to know, does Eagle move plastic in the same way that Simon did when he first comes over? I would think so, but Simon is a unique player and beloved by fans in a way that not even Eagle is. And I wonder what the impact of having 2 10-year, $10 million deals on payroll creates for MVP in later years of those contracts with another player.
I think if you're MVP, it would be the coup of the century. I mean, you're getting just monstrously popular, tremendously successful disc golfers. And like, you've already made this big kaboom into the market. And the question for me would be, can they follow through with the necessary capacity to give people the disc that they want? Because I've talked to multiple people in retail over the last couple of weeks, and they say that MVP is by far the hardest to get stock from.
Yep.
And that, just like regular, normal baseline discs, you can't get them. You can only get like special Tour Series drops and stuff, time lapse, which gets annoying for players if you don't like fulfill the basic needs of their bag. People are not going to only buy $25, $30 discs for their bag. They're just not. So I think that would be the thing for them. But it would be such another to follow up with a huge Eagle sign. And remember, they're going to probably do a whole video and everything, just like they did with Simon. And like the hype train would be just crazy. It would be
massive. Yeah.
Crazy. And yeah, I mean, I guess you see some risk down the line, but if you can use these two moves to bite off enough market share that people start using your discs. I mean, people are already, I've seen Discmania people be like, my whole bag is Discmania, but I'm going to have to reevaluate that if, Eagle doesn't re-sign. Yeah. Well, here we are. So what's going to happen? More people are going to make the switch to MVP because they love these are their favorite players. And you're drafting off of the image that Discmania built for these two players.
No, that's absolutely true. Yes.
And so then, sure, you're taking some risk, but like, how risky is it really if you're biting off an extra 5% of market share? And what's the annual, like, okay, you're spending $2 million a year on marketing expense. What is the revenue for this company? It's a lot more than $2 million.
Yeah. Yep.
I think it's entirely affordable.
Hey, MVP, standing invitation. If you sign Eagle, please come on the show. We got questions for you. Sure.
So what about Discraft? There's been a little bit of buzz about maybe it's Discraft. He was seen throwing a Zone OS in a video back in December or something. What would this mean to Discraft if they signed Eagle?
Discraft has started doing something that I think is really interesting. And I wish I remember thinking we need to talk about it. And I think it kind of got lost during the holidays. But Discraft came out with the collaboration series where you had like Macbeth and Corey Ellis Lunas, I think was the mold. And and different players are coming out with these, or it was Anthony Barella and Macbeth Lunas. And they did the Big Z Lunas, and it was the collab series. And to me, what I see when I see those series is that they are taking the purchasing power of Macbeth and they're pairing it with their players who don't sell discs in the same way, which is probably everybody on their team, right? Like, not to knock any of their individual players, but nobody moves plastic like Macbeth. And I know people who collect every Luna that comes out. And so when Anthony Barella and Paul Macbeth do a collab Big Z Luna, you're moving Anthony Barella plastic, right? And Anthony Barella gets some of that money. And it's an opportunity to harness Macbeth's marketing and branding power. especially with Macbeth and his focus on the foundation, running the Florida tournament, the chess.com Invitational, these collab series. Macbeth is becoming bigger and bigger than just a competitive and top player, and that's been the case for years now. And an opportunity to bring Eagle in as kind of that pairing where you get to use the branding and the power of and marketing power of Macbeth with a player who could be the top player for the next 10 years, I think is a really smart opportunity for marketing and one that Discraft can really take advantage of. That's how I see those two playing out. And I think that there's actually like a pretty good fit there that I hadn't considered prior to, the official announcement of him leaving.
Yeah, it would definitely be a strength into strength signing for Discraft, who has a much deeper bench than MVP, and star power, and this would be like we have the best team in disc golf right now, right? Like that would wrap it up.
Yeah,
like they were already, I think, out. We decided they were number one, right, over Innova in the 2023 rankings poll. I can't remember.
I don't remember what we decided.
Macbeth having a down year did not help.
Right.
But they had a lot of other guys have good years.
Mm-hmm.
But, either way, I think the story would be similar if he signed at Innova. Which is that, Innova, after maybe a little bit of a lean year on its star team, obviously Calvin playing fantastic, but not obviously 100% consensus number one player, but this would be like, okay, we're back to our roots of we have the best players at the top of MPO and choice of champions, blah, blah, blah.
Right. The choice of champions is the choice of champion singular right now.
Right.
On the MPO side. Yeah.
Right. It's a little thin on the star team. So interesting to see what would happen there. So how about for Discmania? If they don't sign Gannon Burr, what's the impact?
I think that I think that it is an interesting question about what the House of Discs business side is saying about sponsorship markets. We see Latitude not re-sign a bunch of kind of, mid-level guys, second-tier guys. Eagle doesn't get re-signed. I wonder if they are just sitting down looking at, and they're re-signing players who have been with a company for more than 5 years does not give you nearly the ROI that we think it does. That's my big question mark for Discmania. I'm hesitant to be oh no, Discmania is down the drain when they have a huge corporate, part of a huge corporate entity now, and what that can mean for them. They still have Kyle, they still have Ella, and I'm just very curious how House of Discs is kind of approaching this part of the marketing and disc golf industry, and if maybe it's just a little bit different than what past tradition has told us is best.
There's a lot of unanswered questions for me right now about House of Discs and how they're approaching stuff, because if Nicholas ends up at Latitude 64, then it's okay, they lateral moved him to what they're now making a European focused brand, more so even than it is now.
Sure.
And then if Discmania brings in Gannon, then you're okay, that all makes a lot of sense.
Right.
But if they lose Nicholas to a Discraft or a whoever,
mm-hmm.
and so Latitude 64 doesn't sign anybody, and then if they don't sign Gannon at Discmania, then it's okay, well, is your strategy to just cut costs as much as you can? Because I'm not sure that's going to work out for the long term. Every company comes back to signing the big players. Remember all those years Discraft had DOS and nobody else?
Mm-hmm.
DOS wasn't even touring. And everybody was Discraft, what a loser company. Their team sucks. And then they signed Macbeth and completely overhauled what people thought of them as a business.
Yep.
And the popularity of their discs went through the roof. Everybody comes back to signing players because it's good marketing.
Sure.
And so I'm really curious to see where conglomerate, private equity backed company is going to do in the sponsorship department because it's been quiet so far. It's been all net negative so far.
Right.
Have they signed anybody of note?
Not even of note. Like they re-signed a couple of guys, and that's it.
I'm like looking at they have some. Latitude 64 has some promising names from Europe, but nobody that's like a huge name.
Not Nicholas.
And, Discmania is kind of sitting tight on the players that they've had in the past. I mean, Kyle Klein is under a long-term deal through 2026. So, that's kind of where that's their best player.
Yep.
By far. Interesting.
At House of Discs, you mean?
I was specifically at Discmania.
Okay. All right.
Obviously, House of Disc, Kristen is the star.
Right. Well, you got Kristen, and then you also, you got to include Ricky, wrap Ricky in there with Kyle Klein, right?
Sure. All right, we're gonna take a break. When we come back, we have an interesting chart from a disc golf coach. He's ranking his top 15 power throwers in the world. We're gonna talk about it next.
At Pound, the quality of our gear runs deeper than the stitching. That's why we make everything right here in the US, employing highly skilled, well-paid professionals. From bomb-proof Cordura fabric to YKK zippers and recycled plastics, we source the highest quality US materials to make the most comfortable, durable pack in disc golf. Our lifetime warranty stays with the pack, not the purchaser. So regardless of how you find us, we will be here to make sure your pack stays on the course and out of the landfill. Pound's integrity is held together with more than just thread.
Welcome back to the Upshot. So, Josh, we got a little table to look at, a little chart. Here it is. This is Coach Taylor's top 15 power throwers, his 2023-2024 world rankings. Okay, who is this guy? Well, he's a disc golf coach. He's got an Instagram account. It's Coach Chris Taylor with underscores between the words. And he made this little table of top 15 power throwers. Now, you'll see that it contains a number of statistics from the Tech Disc data that you can get with the Tech Disc product that you throw the disc and it tracks how hard you threw it with how much spin, nose angle, how much wobble you have in your throws, all of that stuff. Now, you'll see that these are not an objective ranking, but rather his personal subjective ranking that is loosely related to the data. So whether or not you want to talk about the rankings themselves, we can, but I'm interested in looking a little bit more at the data and kind of comparing it to each other. So number one on this list, which I mean, if I don't think you have a legitimate list if David Wiggins Jr. is not number one on the list. He has the highest recorded Tech Disc number on this chart, although I think Barella has been speed gunned at higher values in the past.
I think that's correct.
But David Wiggins Jr., 84.7 mile per hour release, 1,552 revolutions per minute, a minus 1.4 degree nose angle, but a good amount of wobble, 6.9. I mean, I don't exactly know what that number means, but the highest number on this list. But I mean, the dude throws the absolute crap out of the disc.
Right. Yes, that's, if you didn't know that, welcome to the real world and climbing out from under your rock. Like, it makes sense. And I think it provides a nice benchmark for looking at those statistics, right? Because I don't know, I've not followed a ton of this Tech Disc data and what it all means exactly. And so it's hard. I mean, miles per hour is easy to kind of contextualize because of baseball pitching, right? You can look at, like, I know baseball pitching speeds. I look at this and I go, okay, I see, like, it makes sense to me. I know how, I understand those numbers. 1,500 RPMs doesn't mean anything to me.
Not yet, right?
Not yet. Exactly. Not yet.
Spin rate's a big thing in baseball.
Yes.
Because of the impact that it has on the breaking ball and whatnot.
Right.
We don't really talk about it in disc golf yet, but that's because we haven't had the tools. And like we actually have the tools now, and we can look at the RPM spin rate comparison of these different players.
Exactly.
Because I think there's some interesting notes there.
And that's exactly the point I wanted to bring up, right? So David Wiggins comes in at the 1500 RPM mark, the negative 1.4 nose angle, and the 6.9 wobble. And that allows us then to look down this list and kind of contextualize that, because we know how far David Wiggins Jr. throws, and take that miles per hour, which has been the base metric of how we've measured how, like, oh yeah, someone throws far, look how fast they throw, and provide the rest of the statistics and then work it down with the rest of this chart. So very interesting exercise, and I'm excited to talk a little bit about this.
Okay, so let me just give you the list if you're listening on the podcast and not watching on YouTube, just so that you have his rankings of top 15. Starting at number 1, David Wiggins Jr., Anthony Barella, Eagle McMahon, Christian Quoksa, Ellie Mittling, Albert Tom, Simon Lizotte, Double G, Rasmus Salkoripi, Ella Hansen, Alex Geisinger, Henna Blomroos, Adam Hammes, Ezra Aderhold, Thomas Gilbert. Now, obviously, like by definition, like some of the women on this chart do not throw as far as the men on this chart. But you get the concept here, right? Like relative to their division, you know, having Ellie Mittling in 5 doesn't feel crazy. She legit throws 70 miles per hour. That is 5 miles per hour faster than Ella Hansen throws. And she's 16, right?
Right.
I think she turned 16 this year.
I think
that
so.
is just
Something
so
like that,
crazy.
yeah.
We are potentially witnessing like future superstar emerging before our eyes. So here's, okay, I got to draw attention, Josh, to Double G.
Okay.
Are you surprised he's at 8 on this list, first of all?
I was surprised. When I without looking at the data, when I just looked at the list, when Double G was in 8, especially behind, you know, like Simon right now, Albert Tom, I probably would have him. I thought Double G was top 5. Maybe
Okay,
not number 1
sure.
anymore, but I thought like bottom, like top, like
Yeah, like Wiggins, Barella, sure, like Quoksa,
fine.
and then Double G.
And then the Double G. Yeah, exactly.
But here, this is amazing. And this is why I think this data is going to be like long-term revolutionary for disc golf, especially as we learn to coach it better. Double G has the lowest miles per hour on his throw of any of the men on this list. 75.3. Obviously still an elite number, but below Ezra Aderhold, Adam Hammes, well below AB and David Wiggins. But does he really, I mean, obviously AB throws farther than him, but he is like next up.
Yes.
But look at this, 75.3, but he has the highest spin rate, 1,675 RPMs. That's 125 more than David Wiggins. And his nose angle, minus 7.2 degrees.
Crazy.
With the lowest wobble on this chart, 1.2. He has the cleanest, spinniest release of any power thrower that we know of right now. With an extremely aggressively downward nose angle, right? He gets that high release with the negative nose angle, and that's how you throw far in disc golf.
It's look at Ella Hansen as well, right? She's a full 5 miles an hour behind Ellie Middling, but is about 80 rotations per minute faster. But her nose angle, Ellie Middling is negative 0.1, Ella Hansen negative 6.7. Half the wobble that Ellie has. I mean, same thing. It's exactly the same story there.
I think this shows that Ellie Middling has room to grow.
I agree.
Because you look at the other top power throwers, and they're mostly throwing with more downward nose angle.
Yep. And that's what's interesting to me is I wonder if David Wiggins and Anthony Barella were to work on getting that nose angle down to, you know, the Double G or Ella Hansen levels. Does that mean they have more distance capacity with the right coaching?
That is the question. Like, is there more in the tank?
Right.
Or is it because they throw so hard they can't put that much downward angle on it?
This
genuinely just don't know.
Exactly.
Like the physics of flight enough. I don't think. Do we have the tools to talk about this yet? As you know, even like for elite, experienced throwers.
I don't think so. That's why I mean this is fascinating, but it is the first step in a very long journey to getting to the point where we can coach throwing and nose angle and coach the top players to be better, right? You could take an amateur and have them throw a disc, right? If you and I were to go throw with this tech disc, like anybody could look at that data and be like, you got a couple, I mean, your miles per hour are quite slow even for your division, right? Like
I've thrown it, Josh.
Have you?
I don't think I'd make this list. I have. Yeah. It's really cool. I think my biggest problem is nose angle.
Oh, okay.
Which is unsurprising, as I haven't come from an ultimate background. I throw a lot of nose up, and that's hard for me to correct that.
That makes sense.
I also don't throw particularly hard, but I've never really worked on my form. But this is the kind of thing that you could throw a couple times, and you're like, oh, like I have very obvious things to get better at.
What's interesting then? Now, right, exactly. So that's exactly the point. Amateurs, easy. You look at it, you see it, you know it. The interesting question is it more? Is it if David Wiggins Jr. kept his miles per hour the exact same, is the 1500 RPMs with a negative 1.5 nose angle and lots of wobble preferable to 167 RPMs with a negative 7.2 nose angle, right?
Okay. I just want to point this out.
Yeah.
I think what we're going to do is in our Inside the Circle bonus segment for subscribers, we're going to have the Tech Disc founder on the show. If he will, I have not talked to him about it yet, so we got to check.
Yep.
We'll have him on and we'll talk about some of this stuff. What have you seen? Where, like, look at these numbers and let's talk about let's contextualize them for what you've seen so far. I mean, this product has only existed for like 6 months or something. Mm-hmm. So it's not like we have years and years of data, but I would imagine we'll be able to talk more about how some of those, like, should you throw less hard but with more spin, like relatively, right? Would it be better if AB threw 78 with 100 more rotations per minute on the disc? I don't know.
I don't either.
But it is pretty cool.
Who was the biggest surprise to you on this list?
I think the biggest surprise is that Christian Cuoxa throws 83 miles per hour. Because I knew he was a bomber, but like that's like real big number. That's more than number. AB.
Yeah, that's a big number.
What about you?
I would probably say the bottom two guys, two of the bottom guys, the Adam Hammis and Thomas Gilbert made the list.
You're sleeping on Thomas Gilbert.
I'm sleeping on both of them, to be honest. If you would just now, Thomas Gilbert has the second highest spin rate after Double G at 1600. So also the second lowest wobble rate. Double G's 1.2. Thomas Gilbert's 1.4.
I got to be honest. I mean, I knew he was a big thrower, but in some ways I agree. Yeah. 78 miles an hour, 1600 RPM. Why isn't he playing better?
Oh, right. So I saw that. I mean, I would have expected. I think it's easy to associate top players with distance, right? So
sure.
If you would ask me for my list, a lot of these make sense. I wouldn't have had Thomas Gilbert on. I probably would have had Gannon Burr in his place, right? Or even a little higher up. And I probably would have had Calvin somewhere on that list. And I know Calvin's, his impressiveness comes from his golf shots, but still, I think you associate further throwers with success on tour, and because you consider it a prerequisite. But I think we're reaching a point where you have top players who, like, there's a certain distance threshold of what you truly need, and then the rest is just kind of gravy and doesn't necessarily separate you in the same way.
I just looked up Thomas Gilbert's stats.
Yeah.
388th on tour in fairway hits. 432nd in OB rate. Over 20%. It doesn't matter if you can throw far if you can't throw it straight.
There it is.
But I mean, you wonder, like, take a little off. Could he step up? It's a lot of very promising players still.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff. We will discuss it more in our Inside the Circle segment. So join us there. discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe. Get into the Discord. Get ready for all of our live React shows this year. Looking forward to the season. That's going to do it for today's edition of the Upshot. Thank you very much, Josh. And we will talk to you all next Thursday in 2 days right here on the Upshot.